Okay, so I don't know if this is going out yet, but I'm just going to put into the description or start wondering about the link to a worksheet that will run alongside this, which would probably make a bit more sense of what we'll be talking about. So, just very quickly. That should show up, and then I'll also try and put it in the chat. I'm sure there's a better way of doing this so that I don't have to wait in this way for things to start or whatever. We'll get there. Hello. That was very quick. Oh, apparently chat is disabled. Well, that doesn't make much sense if people have... Oh, hang on. Ignore that. Okay, right. So that should be... there should be a pinned comment now with the link, and it should also be in the description too. Okay, excellent. Right, let's look around. So, today we're just going to be thinking about the French Revolution. So, what you're seeing here shows the revolution's already started. This game, this is Assassin's Creed Unity, starts basically as the French Revolution starts, so it's pretty immediate. So we don't get much of a view of what France looked like before the revolution, but we're going to start by thinking about what France probably did look like before people started getting in the streets like this and burning stuff. Now I'll just also turn stuff down because I'm conscious it's quite, I mean it's quite loud on my screen, it might not be loud anywhere else, but I'll have to remember to do this, won't I? Because this is boring watching this. Who wants to watch this? People just turning down things on the menus. Brilliant. So, and also let's just make sure here. Alright, we don't want loads of stuff, do we? Because that's boring. That's boring. We don't want loads of stuff. The map might be quite good, and I'm going to turn down. I'm sure there's a way. I think I might have already done it. I want to make sure there's no blood, guys. Not that I'm going to be, you know, getting involved with anyone, but if anyone starts, I've got to make sure it's turned off. I'm sure there was an option. I must have done it. I'm pretty sure I've done it. In the grand scheme, it's all good. So, alright, so quiet now, but that's probably for the best. Oh, we want a little bit, don't we? Because otherwise, I'm just going to hear my own voice echoing in my ears, and I don't want that either. So, we'll go with halfway, shall we? So we're going to start thinking about the French Revolution. We're going to start immediately by considering what France was like before the French Revolution started. So we're going to climb up here and have a look. We are in Paris. Now in terms of this game, Assassin's Creed Unity, I don't know how long I've played it actually, probably about an hour. I've just finished the mission where I get this outfit, so that was nice because before I was running around in what looked like pyjamas. It's just a bit odd. And lots of them do start like that actually. You start around running like you're in pyjamas with your hair out, which is fine, but it always takes a bit of time for these things to start up, doesn't it? So we're just going to have a look on maps, and we're going to start heading over to the site. I think it's in this district of the area where most people tend to kind of tie the start of the French Revolution to. We're going to head over to the Bastille, and we're going to have a little think about what Paris was like before the Bastille was stormed. So, now this is the problem here. Aha, there we go. We're heading over to that exclamation mark on the screen over here. So, hello, hello, Ahmad. Now, before the French Revolution starts, France, it wasn't historically like a poor nation, it was a pretty wealthy nation, but it was in the middle of an economic crisis. So there'd been a number of issues which had led France to be close to bankruptcy. So by the time we get to the end of the 18th century, the 1700s, France is not in a good place economically. The king's been spending a fortune, but also, awkwardly in a way, a lot of money's been spent on supporting the colonists in the American Revolution. So France is in a really tough place by the time we get to the end of the 18th century. People are hungry, people are desperate, there's been a load of poor harvests, the price of bread's really high, and things are not looking too good now. One of the things that kind of made a lot of this worse in the mind of lots of people in France was that they had this system called the estate system, and it's essentially it's a social hierarchy. France was a feudal nation at the time, meaning that if you owned land, in theory, you owned it because the king at some level had passed it on to you. It certainly does show the price of colonialism, doesn't it? And I mean, if you've seen Hamilton, you'll know that the awkward thing is that even though the colonists get a lot of support from the French, and probably wouldn't have been able to get rid of the British, I don't know why he's climbing up. Let's go. Yes. Oh, crikey. That'll do. Even though they had loads of help from the French getting rid of the British, they don't really return the favour, but we'll get to that, because the French Revolution, as we'll find out, runs along very different lines to the American Revolution. So they've got this social hierarchy, this social system. It's called the estate system. Oh, there we go. Look, there's Notre Dame. So, not that he's in there, but Quasimodo would be in there, wouldn't he? I don't think he's in this time period though, Quasimodo. From the Hunchback of Notre Dame. I don't know. Maybe if I climbed over there, there'd be an Easter egg or something in there. Maybe they've done something. As it happens, I had been reading the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and do you know what? It's pretty boring actually. The Disney movies is much better. There's not many times I'd kind of plug that, but right, it looks like we're in the right area, but we want to find the Bastille, so we're looking for a big round prison. Oh, I think it might be that over there, so we'll set ourselves up to go right across, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be that one. So the estate system, there's three estates. The first estate is basically the church. I mean, it's worth saying the person who holds most of the power in France at this time is the king. So the king is most powerful, extremely powerful actually in France in the 18th century. There's a system really called absolute monarchy where the king can basically not do what they want because they've always got to have the support of people willing to put get off things into place for them. But in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, do you know, I've just read a comment about the Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's fine if you don't mind the author taking loads of detours. Like there's this big 10-page detour I've just waded through where he talks about architecture in Paris. And some of what he says is fairly interesting, but I want to know what's going on with Esmeralda. That's the best bit, you know. And a goat. It turns out, by the way, the goat is in the book, and it's pretty... it's not one of these things that Disney have just made up to kind of get a cute little animal in, if you think it's cute. Like it's a legit thing in the books. That was quite a nice surprise, to be fair. But the king's most powerful in France. The first estate, so this is the, I guess, social class that has the most power after him is the church, also known as the clergy. Nice. And then you've got the nobles, so the rich and the powerful. They make up what's called the second estate, and then everyone else basically, going from say teachers or lawyers down to people who may not have a job at all, made up something called the third estate. And if you look at kind of the proportion of the population that each one clocks in with and kind of shows up with, it's a bit odd because the first estate make up about 0.5% of the population. The second estate, the nobles, the rich and the powerful, make up about 1%, and then the everyone else category covers about 96 to 97% of Paris in the 18th century. So when you put that in into context of the country's bankrupt because they've been supporting another revolution, the king has been spending a whole load of money on all sorts, from renovating palaces to nice clothing to fancy parties, and the church have the ability to raise taxes, or at least a tax called a tithe, where they can take 10% of people's money. The nobles, the second estate, are exempt from certain taxes, but the 97% have to pay basically all of the taxes and have no say in how the country's run. Well, France is in a precarious place. Now, what the king tried to do, King Louis XVI, is he was thinking about introducing a land tax that was going to get the nobles, wind them up basically, and say that they weren't going to be exempt from a certain tax. And then you can see, ironically enough, that if he wound up the nobles, he would lose a great deal of influence in the country generally. So he calls something called the Estate Generale, which hadn't met in about 170 years, 175 years by the time they eventually do meet. And the meeting is basically going to have representatives from the first estate, the clergy, the second estate, the nobles, and the third estate, everyone else, and they're going to discuss what the plan is going forward for everyone in France to try and just sort out some of the economic problems that they're experiencing. Now I'm conscious that I'm getting close to this marker, but I can't see the Bastille. See, this is what happens when you don't play something properly in it and open up the map. You end up guessing. If anyone can see. Oh, I think that's it, guys. I think that's it over there. So, we'll keep going, and hopefully by the time we get there, we might actually get to the storming of the Bastille. That'd be good timing, wouldn't it? It'd be almost like it'd been planned then. So, the Estates Generale meets, but by the time it meets up, people are already angry, because one of the problems is, even though there's a big gap in terms of the percentage or the proportion of the population each estate represents, what is agreed before the meeting at the Estates Generale takes place is that the first estate and the second estate and the third estate are all basically going to be given essentially one vote. Just because the third estate makes up a large proportion of the population doesn't actually mean that they're going to have the ability to say what they want. If the first estate and the second estate join up together, then what's essentially going to happen is anything the third estate might want, if a vote was held about things that could be introduced to support or to encourage recovery in France, could ultimately be outvoted. And unsurprisingly, they're not having it. It's kind of like if in a school the head teacher might represent, say, the king or the queen. The senior leaders might represent like the vice principals and that sort of thing, you know, assistant head teachers and all the rest. They might represent the first estate, class teachers might represent the second estate, and then pupils might represent the third estate. There's a lot more pupils in almost any school than there are teachers. But if it turns out in a meeting about how the school's going to be run, if it turned out that the vice principal group or class and then the class teacher class or group had the same voting power as every single pupil, well, pupils would probably feel that's a little bit unfair. Now, schools run by, ultimately, let's be honest, pupils not having everything their own way, because if they did, well, who knows what would happen. We'd be in a right state, wouldn't we, if pupils just decided what was going to go on in school. Next thing, there'd be no uniforms, there'd be no lessons. I mean, when I have asked pupils what they'd do to improve school, often, weirdly, the answer or solution is not having school. So let's do 2 days of school, or let's have like half a day of school. And I'll be honest, I'm a bit frustrated that not more pupils want more history. I mean, that could maybe that's something we need to work on. But whatever, innit? I mean, if this was to take place hypothetically in a school, pupils would feel, you know, rightly aggrieved that their voice wouldn't be heard properly if, say, a proposal was put forward and they could just be voted out, despite the fact that the people voting, or they would need to work alongside, could easily outvote them. And with anything, people who have power and people who have wealth and people who have influence, a lot of the time they will support their own interests. And if somebody puts something forward that would undermine your own interests, you know, you're not really going to support that, are you? If you're looking out for yourself. So the meeting takes place, or it's about to take place, and there are some disagreements about how the voting system is going to work. Increasingly, there are rumours circulating that the military or the French army are going to basically lock the country down because they're not happy, or the king's not happy with how things are proceeding, which I think isn't quite what seemingly was about to happen. But you know, rumours in some ways can be more powerful than the truth. And essentially, one morning, the third estate are getting ready to go and meet, as they ordinarily would, in part of the I can't even remember where they're meeting, to be honest, but wherever they're meeting, they couldn't get in. So they meet, because the doors had been locked to keep them out, so they meet up in a local tennis court, and they take something called the tennis court oath. The idea is these people are going to say or support each other until a new constitution is written in France. That basically means until a new rule book is written about how the country is supposed to be run. Now, I'm just having a quick scan before I talk about the tennis court oath, about a comment. So, if I'm saying anything that you've got questions about, please do ask. Or, to be honest, if you've got questions about anything at all, actually, that is appropriate and somewhat linked, that's absolutely fine. Right, let's have a look. Some comments. So, Hunchback, 15th century. Oh, 3 centuries before. Oh, that makes completely different. We'll have a look in the tower in the church later. Then maybe they've got something for Quasimodo. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? I'd have to ask the right kids. Do you know what? This comment, whoever's leaving these comments, right? I can see the name, but I'm just conscious that when I take this down, the name, you know, the comments won't be able to be seen by everyone. There's a lot of wisdom being spouted here by someone in the comments, right, about asking the right kids about what to do in school. And I'm all there for that. I'm massively on board with that. You should do a 100 subscriber special. Oh yeah, actually, that's exciting. I hit 100 subs, guys, during the last live stream. So that was big news. And I think I was even going on or gassing about getting 100 subs. I was excited about the prospect. Came off, had a look, and I've got 100 subs. So that was big news. So now the aim is obviously to get more. So I don't know what am I on at the minute. 123, I think it's coming up. So we obviously need more. So I don't know how we go about this. Really, I mean, it's over to you. Really, people need to share this this channel with people, like with everyone. I mean, we need to share it with everyone. Because this could be the future of teaching. Imagine if this was school. Okay, imagine if this was school. Because you know there's work that runs alongside this. I know you're all really excited about your history stuff. I've got a worksheet even in the description that you can use, and then the stuff I'm talking about, you can use it to fill in the worksheet boxes. I mean, how exciting is that? So yeah, maybe we should do a 100 subs special, but what I'd rather do a 1,000 subscriber special. That's what I'd rather. So let's work towards that, I reckon. And yes, I think I will put that quote that I've just seen in the comments. Oh. Talking too much. That's what happens there when you don't pay enough attention. You don't hold on fast enough. I think I'm looking for a Thinker of the Month, actually. So that quote there is definitely a contender for my Thinker of the Month quote. Yeah, that was a massive L, that was. That was not good. But anyway, the tennis court oath, right? So members of the Third Estate, they meet up and they basically say, we are not going to rest, essentially, until a new rule book is written up in France. And the king starts to see that the sheer number of people who are angry with how the country's being run within the Third Estate is a real problem. And he starts to listen, but one thing, and he basically absorbs the First, Second and Third Estate into one group called the National Assembly, which seems to be some progress. But, and this is what is not good now, is now I don't know where I am. And I was just about to rock up at the Bastille. Oh, you're joking. They've not put us back at where we started, have they? This would be very, very lame. Right, we'll find out. So there's some progress being made, but the king then does a major doo-doo. He makes a big error where what is it, doo-doo or boo-boo? Basically, he makes a big mistake, right? And he sacks this guy called Jacques Necker, who's his finance minister. Now it turns out the finance minister. Oh no, we are on the right place. Wicked. The finance minister's all right. Yeah, people like the finance minister because he had been posting, and he would be publishing what the government was spending money on. Now, lots of people who had power and authority didn't like this, but the public loved this because, of course, they did. Now, we're lucky enough in the UK that you get quite a lot of transparency about what spending is taking place by the government. I mean, not that it makes you feel any better, but if you really wanted to see how the government is spending money, you can literally go online, Google it, or whichever other search engine you want to use, and you can find out how much is being spent on, say, social care or whatever. This was not always the case, and obviously not even just talking about publishing things online. This wasn't always the case in France. So when Jacques Necker started publishing what the government was spending money on, people really liked this. But when he gets sacked, people start getting worried and upset. And all these rumours, as I mentioned earlier, that were circulating around about the military potentially trying to take over, they basically take on their own form, and people start rioting and looting, and that leads us to this building that we see in front of us here. Okay, this is the Bastille, so we'll talk about what happens at the Bastille in a moment, but I'm just seeing hello, hi, I should play some more games. I'm seeing some game recommendations. Yeah, that's fine. I'll tell you what, I'm looking for a game set between 1500 and 1700 because I've got some live streams set or organised for a Crime and Punishment GCSE revision session. And I've got pretty much every unit covered apart from that. So if anyone's got any good ideas for that, that'd be great. But yeah, I will be playing other games because other games cover other periods. This one's really good for thinking about the French Revolution, but when we're thinking about something else, or I'm revising something else, or just want to play something else, then I will. I mean, I've got some ideas. I've got some. I mean, the ones I'm thinking about at the moment that I'm most excited about is I've got some ideas for a FIFA stream. Oh no. Oh, poor guy. I've got some ideas for a FIFA stream, and I'm also realising how much potential Minecraft has. Now, I've never played Minecraft, right, until very, very recently, and it turns out you can build pretty much anything. I mean, I know people who've played it know this, and I sound super old now. I sound like a major noob, but I'm well impressed. So I've got some things I think I'd like to build on Minecraft, so I'll play that soon, I reckon, and we'll put something together. Yeah, right, that's it for questions for now. Alright, that's fine. So, as I'm walking into the wall, scrolling up. So this here, you can see, has been burnt down. Look, this is the Bastille. Now, this was a French... well, okay, obviously it's French. This was a big prison in Paris, okay? Oh, and there's a viewpoint there. Now, this is not historically accurate, but we're going to climb up. So let's have a look. What the best way to do that is, we'll go down there. But I just wanted to show this stuff where it's all burnt down, because the Bastille is stormed. Basically, a riot breaks out that kind of kicks off at the Bastille. When Necker, the finance minister, is sacked, the Bastille, you know, it's not stormed, or kind of the riot doesn't take place here because it's super duper important in terms of the king's power or in terms of royal authority. It's a symbol of royal authority, but the reason it's stormed is because people are after weapons, and it turns out, you know, they'd been looking for weapons, members of the Third Estate, elsewhere already in Paris this morning. Okay, so the fact that the Bastille is stormed, it's just one of what seems to be a number of targets of places where people thought they were going to get weapons. They weren't interested, or they weren't trying to free prisoners. There were only like 7 or 8 prisoners in the Bastille at the time this takes place. But what the Bastille represents... Oh, we can go in. Oh, nice. Now, there was a mission in here, but it was... Oh, okay. Oh, crikey. Right, let's just... we'll come back to having a look at the inside later. I don't know, there used to be a button that you could push. I don't know if this does it. Oh no, you used to be able to push a button and then he'd pull people out the window. Like back in the old school Assassin's Creed, like Assassin's Creed 1 or 2. Oh, get out the window, mate, come on. We'll come back inside and we'll see what... Come here, you. No. Ah! Oh, it turns out the blood effects didn't go off, did they? Oh well. So they storm the Bastille, it gets burnt down. There's a really famous painting of this. I don't know if this is the best way up this... Oh. No, we're going to have to find another way, right? Because I do want to synchronise that. Well, hang on, I'll tell you what. Oh, this is good AI. This is brilliant, this is. I wonder if there's just a way through here. We'll see. We're not going to engage with these guys. We're going to do our best not to. Oh, I mean, we're automatically trying to. But, there we go. When I bought, or first downloaded this, I did see a lot of stuff about people complaining about the climbing, and to be fair, I'm kind of understanding why at the minute, because it's a bit ropey, this. Can we get over there? Oh, no. We might have to give up on this, because I'm not good enough, guys. I can't get up there. There must be a better way around. We'll have a look. But the Bastille stormed, it's burnt down, it's a massive moment symbolically. It's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things in terms of what it means, in terms of what actually happens when the Bastille is burnt down. Like I say, it was hardly being used to hold loads of prisoners. It wasn't like there were loads of really important people there who were being sprung from prison. But there we go. But it does represent, for many people, the start of the French Revolution properly. People had obviously been angry, they'd been upset, things weren't going well in Paris up to that point, but the storm of the Bastille is different because it represents members of the Third Estate fighting physically against royal power and seizing weapons and destroying things on their way. So it's a big moment. Now, if I'm trying to look if there's an easy pathway up. I can't see one, so I'm guessing they want me to go in and have a little look around. Which is a... Oh, go away, go away. Bore off, mate. I would have thought you could just go straight up there, but what do I know? But we'll move on, because there are some other things that we do want to see. There's some more iconic moments of Paris in the French Revolution that we'll need to consider. But yeah, so there we are. That's the first bit, really. We're at the start of the French Revolution. And from there, things... well, they develop quite slowly initially, but they will eventually become deadly, and they will become absolutely brutal. So, what happens is... nobles, like lots of members of the Second Estate, nobles, the rich, the powerful, they leave. The encouragement is coming about getting these people out of the Bastille. So I'm just thinking, like, there's got to be a way. You know, if I'd done my homework and you know, I didn't have like a kid and stuff to do in the day, I could have really done my homework and found a good thing for us to do here, couldn't I? Like a good way around. Oh look, we've got some people here. Lola kicking off. This is what This is not what we like to see ordinarily, but in the context of thinking about people kicking off in France, actually, this is very, very useful. So, we've got the tricolour flag being waved around here, we've got things being burnt. I mean, it's worth saying, look, there are loads of good questions about this, about whether this is good. Because some people look at the French Revolution and about what we're about to discuss now in terms of what happens next, and think it represents a huge moment in terms of the realisation of people's rights and freedoms. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But rioting and violence in the streets is usually not really looked on too positively. I guess the outcome determines for lots of people whether it's valid or not. Okay, so we've got loads of people kicking off here as well. So anyway, the people basically take over, kick off. We can go straight in, can we? Maybe this is how we'll do it then. It'd be nice if there was a nice pulley system or something, wouldn't it? Oh, there we go. That looks like that should work. And then we can find out from the top of here, I hope, where we're going to go next, so I can have a little look at where we go. So, eventually, a new constitution is passed. It's called the Declarations of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, I think. And it's basically, it enshrines a whole load of things within French law and within French practice about the importance of representation, about democracy, about people's rights being protected. It's basically influenced by Enlightenment ideals, especially those of a guy called Jean-Jacques Rousseau. The idea that people have a social contract and that you, by living in a society, you work towards the building of something, and that means that certain restrictions are put on your freedom for the benefit of others, but also that certain benefits of yours are protected also, like life, liberty and property. He's got a massive cleaning up job on his hands there. This must have been from the storming of the Bastille, I would argue. I mean, I've got to check. I'm pretty sure that this should be more damage than it is. I imagine they've left this here for me to climb up it so that you can have a look around Paris, and that's usually how games work. They're not too fussed on being completely accurate, are they? So a new constitution's put in place, but there's all sorts of questions, as you can imagine, about what role the king should have in France from there. Now, I'm conscious that lots of these things, they're kind of very philosophical and political, so if you've got any questions about any of them, please do ask in the comments. I think it's helpful. But this idea of kind of rights being protected by government from the Enlightenment is a huge thing to get our heads around. Oh, there we go. That's the vantage point we were looking to get to. The Enlightenment is in many ways a cause of the French Revolution. Was Mbappe in Paris? Well, I don't think he was in Paris at this stage. I mean, he's still pretty young now, isn't he, to be fair to him? So, no, he wasn't yet, but he soon would be, with all the others who are about to leave, because I think they're about to lose a lot of players, aren't they, over in Paris. But, yeah, the Enlightenment itself is kind of a cause of the, well, I say kind of, it is a cause of the French Revolution. The new idea has been spread around that the king shouldn't automatically be given power just because he's the king, just because he's been born into a certain family. These are things that I think in the UK people have been thinking about quite a lot actually recently, because King Charles has just had his coronation, hasn't he? So these are things people are thinking about, but the Enlightenment generally, the spread of new ideas about who should be in charge and who shouldn't, was a big deal in starting the French Revolution. So it makes sense that its formal, kind of some of its ideas would be passed on into the French Revolution itself. Good question here. What did they do with the Bastille after the French Revolution? Did they rebuild it? Now, yeah, good question. Which I don't actually have an answer to. I'm confident that it got burnt down a lot more. The damage, like I say, was much more extensive than what you've seen here. Given that this is meant to have been burnt down almost entirely, I'm pretty sure it gets pulled down, and that this shouldn't be as impressive as it is. But it's worth looking up, and someone I'm sure can look it up and tell me, and I'm probably saying something that's completely wrong that needs checking. Maybe someone can fact check me using Google or whatever and let me know. Yeah, so new system set up, but there's loads of questions on what to do with the king, because he's obviously been not quite fully stripped of his power, but there's new rules in place about what he can and can't do. And there's all sorts of arguments within what's called the National Assembly, the new political system set up about what you do with the king. And actually, there's something about that we've carried to this day in terms of how we structure our political conversations. Okay, so there's Notre Dame. You'll notice there's no Eiffel Tower. There's no Eiffel Tower built yet. That didn't start. I think until the end of the 19th century. I'm probably wrong. I should probably stop guessing, shouldn't I, about French architecture? Oh, there's so much going on here now. I think if that... We'll head over to this one, because if it's red, that means we can't go there, which means there's probably something important there historically for us. So... Oh no, not again. He's meant to jump off. What's that all about? Boring. Oh, come on, please. I hope it hurries up, because my food is ready, and I'm going to wind this down in a minute. But one of the things that's interesting to us, I mean, you might have heard the terms, politically speaking, right, yes, there we go. You might have heard of the terms right-wing and left-wing. The terms right-wing and left-wing come from the National Assembly. The disagreements that the people have in France and Paris about what you do with the king after there's been a revolution. The right-wingers, the people who sit on the right-hand side, as in they are in the right-hand side of the building, and where they sit in these debates about what you do with the king, they think the king should hold some power. Those who sit on the left believe that the king shouldn't, or that there should be a republic, a system without a king or a queen entirely. And those political terms have kind of followed through to us even to this day. Right-wingers are often associated with being conservative or protecting traditional ideas. Left-wingers are often associated with radical ideas or different ideas. So that's something that's kind of hung over since. But this disagreement kind of overflows even more into what happens next in Paris. So we're going to have a little conversation in a second about something called the Terror, or the Reign of Terror, which was, as you can imagine, not particularly... Oh, there's something here. Oh, a collectible. Not quite sure what I'm supposed to call that, so I'm sure that's probably really normal. I've just never seen that term in my life, so I'm going to ignore that. So we'll have a talk about the Terror in a moment, but there are some questions. So let's very quickly. Do you think the aristocracy deserved to have their lives changed for the worse in the revolution by the lower classes? Do you think there was another more merciful method to achieve peace? Wow, what a question. I feel there would have been, or I would like to think there should have been, but a lot of the time, radical social change happens in the context of those who have having things taken from them by those who do not. That's not necessarily kind of condoning it, but it's generally speaking the rule. If you look at history, and I think it's a healthy way of looking at history, is a history of the haves versus the have-nots. You've got to question why some people have and some people don't. Whatever, like wealth, land, decent family relationships, however you want to phrase things. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there should have been a better way forward, but it's hard, isn't it? Like, we just don't know. It's impossible to know now. Good question though. Well, I don't even know what this building is that we're heading to now. I'm sure we'll find out in a sec. Okay. Okay, so I'm just checking on where we're up to. Right, 33 minutes ago this started. Oh my word, I talk too much. We need to speed this up. So, the king, basically, within these discussions of what's going to happen next, the king tries to escape with his wife, Marie Antoinette. Now, she's famous probably for something that she probably hasn't actually said. She's famous for seemingly saying when the people were hungry, let them eat cake, basically. Why don't they just eat cake then if they're so hungry? Kind of seemingly highlighting how out of touch she was with the plight of the French people. Chances are, she didn't say that, right? You know, we can be fairly confident that this is a myth that's kind of developed afterwards. But the king and his wife, in part for the idea that she would say things like that, are not very popular. Now, the group of radicals who don't want to keep the king in power and want to get rid of him entirely are licking their lips when it turns out the king tries to escape. He tries to flee Paris, just as many other rich and powerful people have done. He tries to flee, but he's caught when people recognise his face on a banknote. So, gutting for him, I guess. Time before phones and before, you know, people necessarily always knew what the king looked like. You look at your banknote and you can see the king's face. Well, that must have been a bit of a strange experience. Ironic, really, that given everyone was so poor, and that's one of the reasons the French Revolution started, that the king gets recognised because some poor people had a banknote. So make of that what you will, I guess. But he's arrested, and the group of radicals who don't want, you know, the royal family and would like to see a republic set up, they essentially take over France. This is a lot more complicated in reality than I'm making it sound, by the way, this part especially. They take over. Oh, here we go. We can go in here. Right, here we go. Hopefully there's no one here. All right. Now, there is some pretty good stealth in here. I can't remember the buttons. Right, yeah, X. Right, we'll try and sneak past these guys. So, I mean, I don't know why I still do this, but... Oh, that was brilliant. That was proper good sneaking, that was. I tend to slow down my breathing when I'm playing stealth games, as if that's going to help my character not make a sound. I don't know why. Sometimes I even turn the controller when I'm turning in a certain direction. I used to do that when I was like 10. I need to grow up, really. Get with it. But this should take us to the top by the look at this. Oh, excellent. Hello. Hello. There's some hellos in the comments. Let's see if is this the one I want. Okay, excellent. Now I'm just having a little pause. Let's see. So, we've got a little bit of time left just to plug this. Now, one thing I'm conscious of, and something someone's raised with me actually, is that oh, okay, just held on enough there. Is that not everyone gets notifications when I start streaming these things. So I think at the moment most people find out that this is on because like one or two people do, and then everyone else kind of, or that might join or see this, it ultimately gets told by someone else. I don't know why it is, but apparently you need to, what I've been told. So I'm gonna, I mean, I haven't got a clue how YouTube works, and which you can probably tell, but I've been told that apparently the notifications need to be selected to all, and they don't need to be personalised, guys. So don't forget, absolutely, as Fiona's just said, you've got to click the notification bell, and then you've got to make sure your notifications are set to all, apparently, so I've been told, not personalised, and then that will make sure you don't miss anything, because we wouldn't want to miss anything, would we? I mean, like I've said before, I don't do this, guys, for me. I'm not here playing PlayStation, chilling. For me, it's for you guys. You can learn about the French Revolution today. Yeah, so make sure that you share it with everyone, and I mean share it with everyone. Like great Auntie Doris, your mates, and tell them I'm learning so much through this channel, and it's so much fun. Oh my word, I've always enjoyed history, but now it's fun to not just in the classroom. Now I can enjoy it at home on my phone. Oh my word, what a life! So it's worth just saying that because I'll forget when I look at. Oh, brilliant, great climbing there. So. The king is arrested, right? The radicals take over, and he's put on trial, and he's tried with treason. He's eventually executed in 1793. I think it's in January. The king is executed. Now this is a huge deal, a huge deal that the king is executed. Great Auntie Doris will be she'll be very happy. If you pass, honestly, I know this for a fact. Okay, this is going to make people's day if they saw. Someone playing Assassin's Creed or history-based video games and talking about history over the top. It's like a virtual textbook. Who wouldn't want that? Do you know what I mean? Here we go. Here we go. So here's some members of the Third Estate. Look, all looking poor. They're probably all talking at this stage about what to do with the king. Like, what do you do with the king? Nah, I'm just joking. They're probably talking about how much like these parsnips or tomatoes are. Because most people, you know, they're not going to be that focused on the political conversations, just like they are now. Like, if you think about your life and people around you, some people will talk about politics sometimes, but very few people really get into the nitty-gritty of what a constitution or what a government should look like. So some people are super into it and they're really keen, and most people are just going about their daily life. Obviously, though, in France it got to the stage where enough people were angry that they were willing to go to quite extreme lengths to change things, and the execution of the king sums this up. Now this is a huge deal, okay? We've just had yeah, the king does have a wife, and we're going to talk about her in a minute. She gets her head chopped off too. But in fact, I'm pretty confident I remember on the way over, I think it's around here, seeing a guillotine, which is how most of these people were executed, wasn't it? So we'll head there instead of the viewpoint I was heading to. Now it's a super big deal. We've just had a coronation in the UK, so first one in 70 years. So it's all super exciting. Everyone's been thinking about the king. Now, lots of the symbolism and the things that actually happen, like his touching rings and putting crowns on, most people feel a bit disconnected from. But if you think about the context of the 18th century, the king represents, for some people, you know, God's will. He's there because God wants him there, and his head gets chopped off publicly because some people don't like what he's done. That's a massive, massive thing, and it's super important to kind of understand how different, how much France had changed from the period we've started thinking about today. So the king gets his head chopped off, and eventually 9 months later, Marie Antoinette gets her head chopped off. Now, people hated her, not just because of the supposed comments about her saying, "Why don't they eat cake?" but she had expensive dresses, she was hosting all these parties, she was Austrian, which people didn't like, because one of the things that happened when, around the same time as the king's execution, just before really, France had declared war on Austria and Prussia. Because you've got to think, not only are there huge changes taking place in France, if you're going to chop the king's head off, but other people are looking in scared. If you're in Britain and you're powerful or you're wealthy or you're part of the royal family, and in France they've just chopped the king's head off, or they've just kicked out all the nobles, and they've introduced new laws that give people these crazy ideas like they should have a say in how the country's run, because at the time that's pretty radical. That's a pretty scary thing. So there's a whole panic within those who take over in France, the radicals who take over and execute the king. They're worried that other nations are going to invade them. They're worried that people who've left France in fear are going to come back to try and kick them out. And it leads to all sorts of hysteria, it leads to all sorts of fear. And this kicks off a period called the Terror. Now we're going to hopefully catch up with the guillotine about the right time to talk about this. I'm just checking I'm in the right place, but basically the Terror is a period it's about 10 months between June 1793, June 1793, for 10 months where thousands of people are killed. Thousands and thousands of people are killed. Now, if the easy way of explaining why this is that the people in charge want to make sure they stay in charge. But it's a little bit more complicated than that, because what actually ends up happening is I'm just having a look at some quick questions before we go into some more detail. What laws did they do? Well, we're going to come on to that in a moment, because one of the things they introduce in terms of the reasoning for executing people is that people don't seemingly have enough, or don't show enough, passion for the revolution. Lots of people are executed, not necessarily because they've actually committed a serious crime, although, the radicals in charge would say they were serious, is what lots of people are doing is they're not obviously supporting the revolution enough. So there are some really tragic stories of people being executed because they're not patriotic enough, they're not behind the revolution enough. So there are stories of people who, a really tragic tale of a lady who saw her husband being executed by the radicals at the guillotine, and she cried because naturally her husband's just been executed. But because she cried, the people who were kind of overseeing the execution felt that she wasn't showing enough support for the revolution. If you're going to cry because your husband has been executed, well, he's been executed because he's not supporting the revolution, which means you don't support the revolution either. And this just goes to show how kind of scary things would have been for people. People had to publicly be seen to be supporting the revolution, or they would find themselves under the guillotine as well. So this lady who watched this happen, she's put under the guillotine, and she has to wait there for hours, just after her husband has been killed, and then she is finally executed as well. So, and there are a number of stories like this. There are at least, I was looking at some figures earlier, there are about 17,000 people who were officially killed, executed as part of the French Revolution because of something called, ironically enough, the Committee of Public Safety. The actual organisation of people, the group of people who were in charge of overseeing these executions, are called the Committee of Public Safety, and which, brilliant. It just goes to show, just because you call yourself something, it doesn't mean that you actually kind of achieve it. It doesn't mean anything what things are called a lot of the time. But yeah, no, that's a sad one. And it just goes to show how kind of brutal and cold things were. But it obviously terrifies people, because if you're seeing people that you know being executed, a lot of the time, because they've just been accused of doing something they may not have even done, it's naturally going to scare people, it's naturally going to terrify people. So let's have a look. Tea's ready in 10, my tea's ready. My tea was ready about 20 minutes ago. I just need to stop. I need to chop this off. So I'm looking for the guillotine, and that'll probably be, oh, look at this is very historically accurate. This is it's well known that in Paris at this time there was a floating basket, and that you couldn't get it. Like you can walk right through it. I don't know if it's still there now. They might have done something about it now, but it's somewhere around here, guys. We'll find it now. We'll find it whilst we're looking at all these people. So all these people are going to be terrified because you're one accusation away from execution, and it's scary stuff. Now this essentially comes to an end when, as history would have it, as the story goes, one of the main drivers for these executions, a guy called Maximilien Robespierre, is executed himself. Now, if you're a member of the group of people who've executed the king, you've got to be aware that, well, if people were happy enough to execute the king, or at least went along with it, they're probably going to be happy enough to execute you, or at least go along with it. And part of the reason that there's such a pressure to execute as many people as there is the people in charge are worried that the people are basically going to come and kick them out. So they have to kill people to scare them off from doing that. But when Robespierre, who is accused basically of the same thing, not showing enough passion for the revolution, is executed, things calm down ever so slightly. A group of people called the Directory is put in charge of France. They never really sort of organise themselves or fix things, and they rely heavily on the army. And this is where we're going to come into the final 10 minutes here, because we've nearly got to the end really of the whole story, because the Directory lean heavily on the military, the French military, who are led by a man called Napoleon Bonaparte, who is naturally and quite rightly super famous. Not saying that everything he's done is right, but he's just one of these kind of titans of history who was involved in so much that it makes sense everyone knows his name, even if not everyone knows what he's been up to. But the Directory lean heavily on him to basically rule France for them. They're trying to fix things, they're trying to improve things, they're not executing as many people, but things aren't really improving economically. So Napoleon and the military are leaned on heavily in order for them to rule the country with any sense of respectability. Now, Robespierre got his own head he did. Yeah, he did. He got his own head chopped. Do they have the force in Paris? They may well do, Maybe they do. Oh, goodness me, that's pretty brutal. So, yeah, it's worth saying, not just... Oh, goodness. What's the... Right, here we go. Finally got something happening. Just because I wanted to show these people... I've not got any medicine. No! Here it is. So, we'll have to be quick here. This is the guillotine. Yeah. I don't know if they've got any... Oh, yeah, pretty brutal. So, someone's about to go into the guillotine. So, that blade there... I'm okay. I can survive as long as they don't try and shoot me. Oh, famous last words. Yeah. I thought I'd have been alright. So we'll go back there and we'll have another little run around. But the guillotine was the method of execution, like the favoured method of execution. So whilst it's loading up, let's just see what's happening in the comments. Any questions? Was Napoleon actually really short? No, actually. Good question. That is what he's famous for. He's famous for being short, height-wise. He wasn't. He was extremely average in terms of his height. So exactly the same height as the most average person you could think of in France at the time. The reason he's known for being short, and there's this idea of the Napoleon complex. Oh, this is a good view. There we go. There's this thing called the Napoleon complex. The reason for that is because British propaganda, when Britain were at war with France, wanted to portray him as short because it was just an easy way of kind of highlighting or kind of trying to make him look silly. I mean, to make Britain look better. But we'll come on to that, because that's basically where we're going to end up in a moment. So, there's the guillotine. We're going to have another look down now. Why do they have guards by the guillotine? Well, the guards are there basically to do... Oh, look! There's about to be one. Look, so this guy has been accused of something. So the guards are there to stop people in the game, like me, from just going and running around, but also to stop anyone else from trying to stop executions from taking place. Let's see what happens if we get on top of this building. Now, I have turned off the blood effect, so this shouldn't be too gruesome. But look, this is how it works. That blade there, look, so there's a wooden block that comes across. Oh goodness, right. For what it's worth, I was going to turn the camera away then. I didn't expect it to be that quick. But actually, do you know what? That is somewhat realistic, because one of the things about the guillotine, as you've just seen, is that it was super quick. And it was seen to be fair, okay? The idea was that one blade, it kind of drops down super quick and executes people really quickly. I don't know why they're all running away. Maybe something's happened. But you could execute people really quickly. And it just meant that, well, it makes sense. 17,000 people killed over, a 10-month period. You're going to need a quick method of execution, brutally. So, that's the guillotine, super famous. But things calm down when Robespierre is executed. And increasingly, the Directory, who replace him and come to power, lean on the military. Now, France is at this time at war with all the nations, well, a lot of the nations around them, because these nations are worried about the impact of the revolution succeeding. Of course they are. Now, what happens eventually is Napoleon sees that the Directory and the people in charge, they're not really. Yes, good question. I mean, it just goes to show, thankfully it's not incredibly realistic, which is what we want, because when we have little things that were not expected to happen like that, yeah, it's nice to see it's not as realistic as it could be. Which is quite nice though, look. Oh, he's making one of these. Now, Napoleon increasingly sees that the Directory can't function really, and he starts to get the sense that with the support of the army, because he is a successful general, he can gain control of France and rule France, and that's essentially what he does. He establishes himself as the first consul of France, basically the ruler, the dictator of France, and he eventually assumes the title of emperor, which is a big deal, because when you think about the fact that France have gone from having a king to a new system that didn't rely upon the king, to then getting into a situation where they've got an emperor. Well, has there been that much change? Well, there has. There's been some real significant change in terms of how people think, in terms of what people do, in terms of how the system's supposed to work. But we're going to end by thinking about Napoleon in charge. So Napoleon is a successful military general, but he makes a huge error by invading Russia. Now, he's not the only person in terms of military generals who were previously successful to stumble by invading Russia, but he invades Russia and it doesn't go well. It's freezing cold as the Russian troops are retreating. They burn all the ground around them. So, let's see if there is anything about Quasimodo in Notre Dame. That'll be a nice way to finish. So it's desperate, and it goes downhill quickly for Napoleon after that. He's eventually arrested. He's put into exile, but he escapes and kind of fights back, and that leads up to, this is massively pacing through things here, and there's a lot more detail, and I'm probably butchering it, but he essentially gets to a place where it is impressive, isn't it? Such a shame that fire happened a few years back. I mean, and yeah, I went to Paris on honeymoon actually, so we went to Notre Dame, and it was amazing. It was incredible. It's definitely worth a visit if you can get there. But Napoleon is he fights back, and it all culminates in the Battle of Waterloo, which he loses. Okay, so they lose the Battle of Waterloo. He's put into exile again, never recovers from it, and France, are left ultimately picking up the pieces, which is a tricky thing. They'll never get a king or a queen again. They're going to have a republic from then on. They've got a system now where you've got two. I think it's called I don't know what the right phrase is. There are two basically legislative bodies in France. There's a president, there's a prime minister, so they don't have a king or a queen, and that stems from the French Revolution. But the French Revolution's, its impact is traced in all sorts of ways, not necessarily just because of people, the tragedy of lots of people being killed or executed, but the ideas themselves. Now, we don't have time today, maybe I'll think about it in a future stream, but it ends very differently to the American Revolution, and the reasons for that are super interesting. You could debate and talk and argue about it for ages, really. But the American Revolution ends with the British being kicked out of the colonies in America, the Americans setting up their own system of government, and it works. The system of government in place in America now, obviously there's been some changes in terms of laws, but the system of place in America now was essentially established after the American Revolution had happened. In France, tens of thousands of people are executed in between. And we can speculate and hypothesize about why that is. Probably the difference is, I would argue, where the people in France gained their rights after the Revolution as opposed to where the people in America felt they'd gained their rights. The American Revolution places a heavy emphasis on rights being given from God, whereas the French Revolution doesn't. And I think there's an argument or case to be made that some of the difference between the success of one and the failure, well, not the success and the failure, but the brutality of one compared to the other is somewhat rooted in that. But the French Revolution represents new ideas in Europe spreading quickly. It represents the rich and the powerful realizing they need to give changes to certain people. It represents people increasingly feeling that they are owed the ability to have a say in how their country is run. And it all stems initially from a very outdated political system, feudal system, the three estate system, being shaken by heavy taxes for one group of people, by successful revolutions taking place in the Americas, by the king spending a fortune and not getting much support from his people naturally when they're all hungry. And it ends with a republic being established, tens of thousands of people being killed, but new ideas spreading quickly that would shape the world that we live in, especially in Western Europe at least. So let's have a look. So someone's going to Normandy. That's exciting. Brilliant. Someone's going to Paris. Yep, it's well worth a visit. There's loads to do. There is loads to do. Yeah, we're going to have to go back. I mean, we went for a week years ago now, but yeah, there's loads to do. You'll really enjoy it. History joke meme on the subject. If you've got one, let's have one. Yeah, if we've got a good joke, that'd be great. Now I'm just going to kind of chop this off in a minute and leave this, because I was expecting this to be like half an hour. But all I'm going to say is I'm going to be streaming again this week coming up. We're going to be thinking about... I'm going to be doing some GCSE focus stuff on crime and punishment. So I'll be playing actually some more Assassin's Creed. I'm going to play Assassin's Creed 2. And I'm going to play Assassin's Creed Syndicate. And we're going to be thinking about crime and punishment in Britain in the early modern period and in the Industrial Revolution period, or whatever period that is, the 18th and 19th centuries. It sounds like it is, doesn't it? It does sound like the bell's going. That might be Quasimodo. Should we go and see? I did say we'd have a look. Let's have a quick look before we... Because they're in there. At least they are in the Disney film. They're probably not in real life, are they? Not that this is real life, of course. Oh, crikey. Right, let's go and have a look. So there'll be some crime and punishment live streams this week. And then from there... It's actually, I'm pretty flexible with this, so if you've got any suggestions of games that are historically based that I can play and talk about, or that we could learn something from, leave them in the comments. If there's anything that you think we've missed that we could look at, like it can be as flexible and as relaxed, suits me as we can be, that would be something that's good to consider. Then again, just drop it in the comments. And then again, don't forget, guys, you have to subscribe. You have to. Like, if you don't, I'm going to be so upset. And then I'll just be here chatting to myself again. I don't want that. I can't get in, guys. Quasimodo, right? If he's here, he's in there. I wonder if there's a part of the game that comes in here. Maybe I'll have to actually play the missions one day. But yeah, any ideas for future videos would be appreciated. Much appreciated. Muchly. Not even a word. There are some coming up, so it's worth hitting the bell so you don't miss them. And apart from that, that's it. My food is cold now, so I'm going to go and heat it up, and then pick all of the rest of this up another time. There's a worksheet, by the way, in the description. If you're interested in using this for revision, or to have some framework of the order of events that you can take notes on, use it. Could be useful. I mean, I think it will be. And I do think there's something in it, but yeah, we're going to leave it there. So just very quickly, looks like we've got Battlefield 5. This is a suggestion. Battlefield 5 has a very good story mode with some good history. Right, I'll look that up. Got one based on the cavemen, excellent. Bye, sir. Bye, Pablo. OS. Ark Survival Evolved is about dinosaurs. Oh, well, that could work. I've read about that actually. Why did King Louis the 16th, or King Louis the 16th, okay, the king at the time of the French Revolution, walking into the wall, why did King Louis the 16th lose at chess during the French Revolution? Because he always lost his head. Fair enough, that's a semi-decent joke. Yeah, excellent, right, yeah, bye everyone, have fun, start an Ark server, okay, I'm not sure what that is, I'll have to look it up. The suggestions are great though, I'll have a look. Batman Arkham Knight is a very good historical game by the Wild West. Well, it's interesting. I've played Batman Arkham Knight. I can't remember the Wild West stuff, but there is a game called there's Red Dead Redemption 2, which I will be streaming soon. That's about the Wild West. That'd be good. I'm sure. Look, Batman Arkham Knight could work if we can find a way to make it somewhat useful educationally. I'm absolutely all for it. Right? Like I said, I've got some ideas about how I can use FIFA. I've got some ideas about Minecraft, so any ideas we can go with, yeah? So, have a good evening all. Yeah, that's enough. I'm going to go have my food now. Bye!